What does a PACS admin actually make? If you search online, you may see a wide range. Some salaries are around 68,000. Some are over 100,000. So the real question is not only what is the salary? The better question is why do some people land lower in the range while others land much higher? That is what this video is about. Not just the number, what moves that number. For PACS admin roles, it usually comes down to three things: experience, geography, and skill. A PACS admin salary is not one fixed number, it is a range. That range changes based on the job, the workplace, and the market, of course. This is why salary websites do not always agree. One source may show one average, another source may show a different average. That does not always mean one of them is wrong. It usually means that they're not measuring the exact same job. Some PACS admin roles are fairly basic support in their nature, while others expect deeper understanding of imaging workflows. Now, same title, very different responsibility, and therefore different pay. And that is the key point. Salary follows the value of the work, not just the name of the job. Now, there are three main things that affect PACS admin pay. One of them is experience, the second is geography, and then the third one is skill. Now, experience matters because the longer you work in the role, the more situation you've seen. Geography matters because salaries are not the same everywhere. But the skill is the one you can work on now. You may not be able to change your location, and you cannot instantly add 10 years of experience, but you can get better. And you can learn how the system works. You can understand the workflow. You can move beyond basic support. And when you can solve bigger problems, well, you become more valuable. And that is why skill matters. Now, let's look at experience. Experience definitely helps, and there's no way around that. When you spend time in a PACS admin role, you start to recognize patterns. You learn what a normal issue looks like. You also learn when something is not really all that normal. You understand what users are really asking for. You understand what questions to ask, and you get better at finding the real cause of any given problem. That kind of judgment matters. The problem is experience takes time. Early on, you're learning the system. Later, you start to understand the workflow. And then at a senior level, you're not just reacting to problems, you're helping prevent problems. So, yes, experience can move pay, and it absolutely does. But the thing is, experience alone is not the whole story. The real value comes from when that experience is combined with deeper skill. Now let's talk about geography. Geography matters too. PACS admin salary in Canada may not look the same as PACS admin salary in the United States. Even inside the same country, salaries can change from one region to another. That is why salary comparisons can be tricky. A number from one place may not apply perfectly somewhere else. Currency matters, cost of living matters, local demand matters. So geography does play a role. But the problem is geography is not always easy to change. You may not be able to move. You may not want to move. So geography matters, but it's not the easiest lever to control. And that brings us to skill. Now, skill moves pay, and this is the main point. Higher pay usually does not come from simply knowing where the buttons are. Knowing the software matters, but that is only the starting point. The real value comes from understanding what is happening behind the screen. Why did the image not arrive? Why is the wrong information showing? Why is the workflow not doing what people expect it to? A basic support person usually only responds to the issue, but a stronger PACS administrator can understand why the issue has happened. And that is the difference, and that difference matters. Because when you understand the workflow, you can solve the problems better. You're not just using the system, you're helping the system work better for clinical care. That is the kind of skill that moves pay. Knowledge and skill, though, are not necessarily the same thing. In fact, they're just not the same thing. Knowledge means you understand the idea. Skill means you can use it in real life. You can read about PACS, you can take a course, you can learn the terminology, and all of that is useful and necessary. But it becomes much more valuable when you can actually apply it. When someone brings you a real problem, can you understand what is going on? Can you ask the right questions? Can you explain the issue clearly? Can you help move the problem forward? Now, that is skill. And that is why practical learning matters. The goal is not just to know more. You want that for sure, but the goal overall is to become more useful by means of applying what you've learned. Higher value PACS administrators understand more than the screen in front of them. That's a common saying, and it is 100% true. They understand how imaging work moves through the system. Obviously, a study has a path. It starts before the image is taken, then it moves through the system. It gets reviewed, it gets reported, it gets stored, and later it may need to come back as a prior. When you understand that path, problems become easier to investigate. You're not guessing, you're thinking through the workflow. That is why DICOM matters, that is why HL7 matters, that is why workflow matters. Not because those words sound technical, but because they help explain why the system behaves the way it does. When you understand that, you become more valuable. So, how do you improve pay? You build skill depth. Not just more years, not just more tickets, real skill depth. Learn how the workflow works, pay attention to what breaks, understand why it breaks, and document what you've done. The last part's important, by the way. If you helped improve the workflow, write it down. If you supported a project, write it down. If you trained users, write it down. If you helped solve a recurrent issue, write it down. Because when you apply for a better role, you don't want to only say, well, I worked in PACS. Of course you did, but what was so unique about you? You want to show that what you understand. You want to show what you can do. That is how you move from basic support into higher value and therefore higher pay PACS work. So when you think about PACS administrator pay, remember the three levers. Experience helps. Geography matters, but it is the skill lever that you can work on now. The goal is not just to chase a title. The goal is to become more valuable, understand the system, understand the workflow, understand why things work, understand why they fail, and learn how to fix them. That is the real value of advanced tax administration.